What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. Today I'm going over the top decks of Unbroken Bonds Standard Format Week 3. So today is Monday, June 3rd. I'll be going over what I think the top performing decks of the weekend of June 1st and 2nd were. So this will be including League Cup results that I saw and also Madison Regionals results, which I've pulled from limitlesstcg.com. I'm going to call the top 4 decks of this weekend as Reshizard variants, blacephalon-gx, Zoric-gx variants, and Pikarom. Last weekend, Pikarom was not on this list, and I included blacephalon-gx as kind of the underdog as I've been adding into these lists each week. So I didn't think it was the top performing deck of week 2, but I thought it was really well poised for the upcoming week. And Zoric-gx variants were also omitted last weekend, or last week rather, in the video, as they didn't perform too well the prior weekend. So the first Reshizard list we'll look at was also in last week's video. This is Alex Szymanski's second place list from Santa Clara, and I believe this is what kind of inspired the newer lists, which have been updated and probably improved upon. Looking at them objectively. So it was Reshiram Charizard based. It did not include Eevee Snorlax like the Greens version did. It had Arcanine as the counter for Vileplume from Burning Shadows because it's an evolved Pokemon that can attack through that. And then ability based draw like Jirachi, Marshadow, Lele, and the Dedenne GX. Of course, for Welder and the Kiawe's. And notably, it included Choice Band, so Flare Strike could hit higher than 230, which the list from this weekend that we'll be going over did not include Choice Band. So this is the list that the DDG players and Michael Premawat used. Azul Garcia Griego got second place with it at Madison, losing to blacephalon-gx in the finals, which we will get to. But so this list had 4 Jirachis. I really like that because starring Jirachi is just very good objectively. It's a nice starter. And then they played only 2 Reshiram because they also played 2 Eevee and Snorlax to have bulky tag team attackers with different weaknesses. And Eevee Snorlax is pretty good if your opponent only has a water counter prepared and then they can't deal with Eevee Snorlax. They kept the Growlithe Arcanine line for the Vileplume stall threat. And then they played a Miltank, which I really like. The Miltank should be good versus Zapdos and also versus Weezing because it can heal your Pokemon if it's active when you attach energy to them. And it also procs twice for Welder, which is very relevant. Notably, like I said in the last slide, they did not play Choice Band, so they could not one-shot a Pikarom without Double Blaze GX, but if a Pikarom hit into them and didn't knock it out, they could potentially knock them out with Outrage, depending on how much damage they did into them. So if it was like a Tag Bolt with a Choice Band and they didn't hit their Electro Powers, but they hit anyway to deal bench damage, and Outrage could hit back for an OHKO. So definitely some changes, but built in the same vein with the ability-based draw. Next is blacephalon-gx. So this is the list that I had in the video last week for Unbroken Bond Standard Week 2. My list hasn't changed very much at all from this list, except the one I was testing this past week. I took out the second Marshadow Let Loose for 1 Mew from Unbroken Bonds. It slightly improved the Weezing matchup since I also have Lysander Labs and Field Blower, and it also helps versus Pikarom since I am playing Lele GX and Dedenne GX that sit on the bench some games and that are Tag Bolt targets. This is Ian Robb's list, which he won Madison Regionals with this past weekend. A few changes compared to my list. He played the Alolan Muck line, and he did not play the Lele GX and the Dedenne GX. And so I think it's rightfully omitted. He rightfully omitted the Mew Unbroken Bonds since he didn't have easy targets on the bench to protect from Tag Bolt. And Ian only played 2 Welder as opposed to my list playing 4. I have seen a lot of lists playing 2 and 3, and very few playing 4. I still do like 4, but I'll have to try out the 2 to see if there's merit to it and if it just warrants a different play style or if it's just objectively better. It must be good since he won Madison Regionals with it. And he did play the Field Blower Lysander Labs Ultra Space Heat Factory lineup of one-ofs, and he also has the energy switch, which I'm not sure if it's needed in this current format. It was used in past formats as a Zoro control counter, so if they kept removing your active's energy, you could charging up and then energy switch to the active to take a knockout, but with Welder, I don't think the energy switch is as useful. And lastly, for the... Nope, my mistake. This is third. My bad. We're going into Zorg variants now. So this is 7th place for Madison Regionals. Patrick Littleson piloted this Zorark Persian Slowking variant. This is a really consistent looking variant since it has the 2-2 Persian line and the 2-2 Slowking line, in addition to the Ditto, and then it has the Dene and Tapu Lele GX. For ability-based draw until you get to the Zorark. I like this because it's not running just 1-1 lines of the support attackers, or even an additional 1-1 of the Dugong and then a 1-1 of the Slowking. Like I've seen with some lists, they have 2-2 of both backup, or not really backup, but partner attackers in addition to the Zorark. So I like that part of the deck. The Tate and Eliza is interesting. I think I would rather have a second Kukui or a second Acerola, since Kukui is important versus GX decks, and then Acerola is important versus Zapdos variants and Weezing. But the deck is pretty solidly built. Like I said, it's more consistent than some variants I've seen trying to fit too much into the list, in my opinion. And once again, Patrick Littleson made top 8 at Madison with it, so the deck definitely has merit to it. And then this is a bit of a different kind of Zorark variant that Stefan Ivanov won 2 cups with this past weekend in Europe. So he was not playing Slowking. He was playing a 2-2 Dugong line instead, and 1-1 Persian, and then also had the Larvitar with second strike as a fighting type attacker to combat the likes of Eevee, Snorlax, and Pikarom. So Dugong is definitely weaker versus Reshizard than Slowking is, but it's better versus a myriad of other matchups. It's good against Blounds and Baby Blounds and Zapdos. It's good against Weezing. It's good against Malamar. It's good in the mirror to set up multiple knockouts in a row on the following turns. So you have to pick and choose. Do you want your Slowking for the Reshizard matchup and pretty much not much else, or do you want Dugong for a lot of matchups and it helps somewhat in the Reshizard matchup? Do note that the Mew and the Devoured Field were swapped out as the 60th card, so for one of the cups he ran Mew and one of the cups he ran second Devoured Field. Okay, and last for the 4 top decks is Pikarom. So Rahul Reddy, Xander Pero, Will Jenkins, and Justin Bakari all piloted this deck, 3 of them to top 32. Sorry, 2 to top 32, 1 to top 16, and 1 to 4th place. This was a non-Jirachi-based Pikarom build, which I was surprised to see no Jirachi in it, with 2 Pikarom, 2 Zapdos, and then a Tapu Koko GX as the attackers, using the Dene GX, which is new for the deck, as well as Electromagnetic Radar that's new for the deck. And not really built like the Japan lists I've seen and tested with, where they ran 4 energy switch and then 3 multi-switch and more energy and a 3rd Pikarom. And this one's more like the box build, but doesn't include Jirachis and a Jolteon GX. They include Stealthy Hood in case of the Vileplume, but I don't think Stall had a great showing this weekend anyway. I do like the 2 Field Blower. The list looks pretty solid. I'm still a little worried about the power level of Pikarom, which is insane to say since it's a 240 HP Pokemon that can hit 200 to the active and 170 to the bench. But Reshiram seems like it overpowers it a bit. Although I do believe that these 4 players overall went positive versus Reshizard in the tournament. This looks like a very high skill ceiling build of the deck. Like I said, it was surprising for me to see no Jirachi, and I wonder if there's some room for Jirachi. It feels like it would make the deck a lot more comfortable for me, but maybe it's just not needed. And it's nice to see Pikoram come back into the top decks this weekend because it was definitely falling off there. So before our last slide, I'm just going to go back up to the top. I think we have a nice collection of decks here in the top decks, aside from one prizers. We have decks from a varied amount of sets. So we have the Reshizard from the newest set, and then we have Pikaram from Team Up, Blacephalon from Lost Thunder, and then Zoroark variants, which span from Shining Legends through to where all of the partner Pokemon in the Zoroark decks are from. So it's nice to not have just brand new decks or just old decks in the top. We have a nice varied amount, but I do think that one prize decks are still very good because of how strong the GX decks are, and that's why my underdog deck right now is Wheezing. I just won a cup with this list this weekend, and I got second at a cup with it the previous weekend. It was on my top decks last week, but it did really poorly in Madison, so I couldn't rightfully put it in the top decks, even though I enjoy the deck. I've had success with it, and I think it's a strong choice. Its main issue in the format right now for me is that DDG played Miltank in their Reshizard list, and Miltank is a problem for this deck. They did not play Rescue Stretcher, which means if you can get a knockout on it, then they don't have Miltank anymore for the rest of the game. But that's, you're putting a Guzma or a counter catcher and then a turn of attacking, maybe 2 turns of attacking into getting rid of the Miltank. And since they're like distracting you from their tag team Pokemon, that might win them the match anyway. I haven't gotten testing versus that list specifically, but I will be doing that this week. But yeah, I do like Wheezing, and I think Baby Blounds and Zapdos also have a lot of merit to them. Even though I don't think Baby Blounds is inherently a good deck at all, I think it's really good in this GX-oriented meta that we're about to have for Origins and NAIC if things go as I expect them to. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check back next weekend or next Monday to see what I think the top decks of next weekend are. Be sure to follow me on Twitch, subscribe to the channel if you liked it, and check out flipsidegaming.com. Use code Celio for 10% off of your next order, $10 or more. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.